Hello, everyone. My name is Yongkang He. I'm very happy to be here to talk about the free backup for GKE tool from Google Cloud. For those of you who are not aware, Google Cloud is the first cloud to offer the Kubernetes native backup tool. As you can see from the screen, I'm very excited. I love Kubernetes. I love Google Cloud. 5 times Google Cloud certified and fully certified on Kubernetes. Let's get started. The first question is why customer will love backup for GKE, which is the tool provided by Google. This is a first-party Kubernetes native backup tool. It is purpose-built for GKE cluster. So I mentioned earlier, only Google has its own Kubernetes backup tool among the top 3 cloud providers. And the good thing is it is actually free to use. You don't need to pay anything to use backup for GKE. You only need to pay for the storage consumed. And the other thing is backup for GKE does provide the basic container full backup capabilities, full restore or clone restore capabilities. And they also provide the migration. You can migrate the containers from one GKE cluster to another GKE cluster. The version can be the current version plus 3 minor versions. For example, if you currently running 1.22, you can restore to migrate the containers between 1.22 and 1.25. The last point I listed here, it is very important. If you're using autopilot cluster right now, I believe only backup for GKE support autopilot cluster for the container backups. There is no other third-party backup tool support autopilot cluster, though it is not easy to enable it, because to enable the backup for the autopilot cluster, you need to enable it via the gcloud CLI, and it has to be the cluster version 1.24 or plus. So let me jump to the demo preparation part. If you don't have a Google Cloud account, you can sign up a free trial account. It only takes about 5 minutes. And once you have a Google Cloud account, you can create a GKE cluster with a PostgreSQL deployed. Part of the automation, it only takes about 5 minutes. This is my GitHub repository. You just clone the repository and then run the gke-deploy. We will spin up a new GKE cluster and deploy with PostgreSQL, all done automatically in about 5 minutes. If you're not sure how to do it, bottom of the screen, there is a link. Go to the YouTube video to walk you through step by step how to get there. So now, how to enable the backup for GKE? There is a little bit of preparation tasks. First of all, you need to enable backup for GKE API. It does take probably 1 minute or 2 to enable the API. Once you enable the API, for my case, as of today, actually it's Christmas Day, on GKE 1.25, you don't have to enable workload identity. You don't have to enable GKE metadata server for at least one node pool. For previous version, if you're running 1.23 or lower version, you also need to enable workload identity and also enable GKE metadata server. Okay, for 1.25, you can skip these 2 enable tasks. And then once you enable the backup for GKE API, you can enable backup for GKE. This step, it does take about 20 minutes, by it including the task to including the backup for GKE agent. So it depends on the version. If you're running 1.24 prior 1.24, the version, the backup agent, backup for GKE agent will be installed and running on your worker nodes. If you're running 1.24 or the newer version, it is actually will be installed and running on the control plane nodes. So there is pros and the cons. So the good thing is from a Google's point of view, it is more secure. because nobody can see it, nobody can touch it. It reduces the attack surfaces. Okay, but on the other hand side, you don't have much more visibility what's going on with the backup agent. Okay, that's about the backup for GKE prerequisites. Once you have all of these tasks done, you can go to the next step, how to create a backup plan, how to create a restore plan, how to do the restore jobs. I will walk you through from the live demo environment. And you might also, optionally, you want to transform, you want to change the storage class, or you might want to just transform any one of your spec artifacts. It is doable. Okay, let me jump to my web console. So this is a Google Cloud web console. As you can see, I got 2 clusters running here. So one cluster starting U19, the other cluster starting YONG, okay? Both clusters, it's just one node, only have 2 CPU AG memory. For the testing purposes, it's more than enough. So the first demo I'm going to show you is how to configure backup plan, how to define a restore plan. And then I will walk you through how to do the in-place full restore of my PostgreSQL database back to the original cluster. Use the U19 as an example, okay? And then after that, I will show you how to restore the containers from this cluster U19 to Yong in the new different cluster. So the same, and also I will apply some transformation to transform the namespace to a new namespace, and also transform the storage class. The class also increase the number of replicas from originally only 1 to 3. Okay. Before I go to the demo, just to show you. So I created my cluster. I also use my automation. So basically, I log into this. I clone the repository, and then you can go to the directory. And what I did earlier is just run gke-deploy. Okay, that's how I created this cluster. If I do a get node status, you can see right now I got one node cluster. It was created roughly about 8 hours ago. And if I do the namespace list, you can see I do have PostgreSQL here running 15 minutes ago, but I don't have any other stuff running here. And in the meantime, let me verify my secondary cluster. I actually created my secondary cluster from my VS Code terminal. If I do the same thing, get node list, you can see this is my secondary cluster starting from Yong. And it's also running 1.25. I always use the latest cluster, okay? It was created about 6 hours ago. If I do the namespace list here, I don't have a PostgreSQL running here. So the second task, I'm going to restore the PostgreSQL from the other cluster to this cluster. So if you want to keep monitoring, let me put the monitoring, just watch the pod status, okay? But it's not going to happen right now. I will do the force restore to the original cluster. So let me jump to the web console again. How to enable the backup? I actually already enabled it. If you're not sure how to enable, you just click the cluster details. But first of all, you need to enable the GKE API. It's go to the navigation bar and go to the API services, enable API and the services, and then you find the backup for GKE, and then click enable if it wasn't enabled yet. So for my case, it's already enabled. And just to show you where to enable backup for GKE. So if you go to the cluster details towards the bottom, there is an option say backup for GKE. By default, it's disabled. So you can click the pencil icon here, and then you can enable or disable, okay? I already enabled it. This step, it does take about 20 minutes. So once you enable it, you can go to the backup for GKE. So on the left-hand side, towards the bottom, there is a backup for GKE. Once you click the backup for GKE, it will present you this screen. So for now, as you can see from my screen, So you got a few tabs here on the bottom, on the top. You can see you can create a backup plan. You can create a restore plan, and from here you also have multiple tabs. You got a backup plans. That's what you currently have. I have 2 different backup plans, and you can go to the restore plans. What restore plans you have, and the backups is actually pretty interesting. If you want to restore something, restore your container, it's not from the restore tab, okay? It's from the backup tab. And if your screen is not big enough, you need to scroll to the right-hand side. You click set up a restore. And the backups and the restores, it's more just to give you the history. You can see, for my case, my last few backup jobs, I configured to run every hour. That's why you can see the jobs that keeps running. And it shows the name as skid. Okay, if you do the manual kickoff the backup, I will show you shortly. Okay, and let me show you, first of all, how to create a backup plan. If I click create a backup plan, so first of all, which cluster you are going to back them up? I got 2 clusters here. I just use the first one as an example. You want to create a backup plan, say backup plan 1. By the way, you can't use the same name for different backup jobs, so make sure it's unique. And then you're going to choose where to store your backup jobs. So are you going to send to a different location? So technically you can choose any one of the location. Actually, it is more reliable. If your cluster is located in US Central 1, you might want to send to a different region just for the reliability. To avoid the disaster happen, you can always have another copy from a different region. So for my case, I just choose the same region and click next. It will give you the option backup scope. Are you going to backup the whole cluster, or you want to backup a selected namespace, or maybe just protected application within the cluster? So either case, you need to provide the namespace. If you choose backup a selected application, you need to type, say, I might just want to backup this namespace, and from this namespace, inside of this namespace, you might have 5 or all different applications. You can choose granularly to backup just one application, one of the application from the namespace. For my case, I just want to backup my PostgreSQL. That's the application which I really care. I selected the namespace, Yongkang-PostgreSQL. Press OK. Next, what data to include in the backup? Do you want to backup the secrets? For my case, I select the backup the secrets as well. And encryption, you can just custom manage the encryption keys if you like. By default, it is use a Google managed encryption key. I leave it as a default, click next. So here is an interesting part. To schedule the backup jobs, you don't have the easy way to select the site. I want to backup every hour or every day. It is actually, you have to use the cron expression to define the schedule, which is not really user-friendly, in my opinion. But if I know how to do it, but not everybody knows. Let's say I want to do the backup every hour. You basically put 0 space, star space. That's what you need to put here. And it will automatically schedule the job every 1 hour. But you can customize based on the cron expression. How long you want to keep? Do you want to keep 3 days or 7 days or 90 days? It's up to you. And they also provided the option to prevent deletion. Let's say I want to keep 3 days, but I want to prevent the delete for 2 days. Within 2 days, it shouldn't be deleted my backup jobs, okay? And I want to disable this one for now. And you also have the option to lock the retention. That means for compliance requirements or regulation requirements. So if you make it on, actually, no one can delete this until it is going to automatically expire the jobs. Okay, I leave it as off for now. Click next. So that's your backup plan details. My selection is I only backup my PostgreSQL. I want to backup every hour. And also, I want to keep for 3 days for my testing. I don't really want to keep longer. Okay, all you need to do is just click a create plan. That's it. I'm not going to create another backup plan. I will show you shortly from my existing backup plan. So my existing backup plan here, that's BP for Yongkang. That's my existing backup plan. If you click the backup plan, it will give you the details of how many backup jobs are already completed. So for now, you can see all of my backup jobs actually already listed here. It was scheduled to run every hour. If I click the details, it actually gives you the details of the backup plan. So for example, since we listed here, which namespace you are going to back up, and how you're going to schedule the job and the retentions. So that's about the backup plan. It will automatically schedule the job based on your settings. But if you want to do the backup job manually, you can also, if I go to the last step, under the backup plans, move the screen to the right-hand side, you can start a backup immediately. If you click start a backup, it will ask you, what's your backup name? Maybe you say on-demand backup. Once you make all these selections, you also got the chance to customize the backup retention. Once you're done, click start backup. I'm not going to start another backup since I already have the scheduled backup jobs running. So before I do the restore jobs, let me just walk you through how to define a restore plan. Actually, before you do the restore jobs, you need to create a restore plan. So click create a restore plan, and it will ask you what are your restore plan name. So let's say my restore plan 1. And the restore plan must be corresponding to your backup plan. So for me, I already have a BP for Yongkang for my U19, this cluster. So I select my existing backup plan, and then where are you going to restore to? You need to choose a target cluster. So you can choose, say, I want to restore back to my original cluster. So in this case, I will restore to my original cluster. And if I click, before I go to next step, you can also choose to restore to a different cluster. In this case, I got Yong-GKE for Yongkang. So you got the option, either case. Once you make all of the selection here, click next. So choose namespace the resources. Do you want to restore all namespace the resources, or you want to restore the names, particular namespace? So for my case, I just want to restore Yong-PostgreSQL. That's what I care. And once you make the selection, you also got the chance to choose how to handle the conflict. Let's say you want to restore back to the original cluster. The containers are still running. So in that case, by default, it will fail the job. What you can do is you are sure the original container is gone. You want to override, you can choose the rollback, which is destructive. So it will terminate your existing pod and then restore from the backup. And you need to define the volume data restore policy. Do you want to restore everything, or you don't want to restore the volume data? So that's your choice. Once you make the decision, click next. Do you want to restore the cluster scope, the resources? By default, these are included. You don't, if you don't want it, you just remove it. And click next. Here is the thing. If you want to transform any one of the objects or spec artifacts, for example, I want to change it to a different namespace, or I want to increase the replicas from 1 to 3, you need to add a rule. So I will show you how to add a rule shortly from my existing restore plan. But basically, it's not that easy to configure the rule. First of all, for example, if you want to transform your storage, your namespace, you need to put your target resource. That's your namespace. I spent quite a little bit of time to figure out how to make it working. And your target field, basically it's a JSON path. That's something also pretty tricky. And you need to replace the specific value. For example, my original namespace, Yong-PostgreSQL, I want to replace to Yong-PostgreSQL clone. And once you make all of these selection, click it done. I will show you my existing one. I'm not going to create another rule. Basically, it's not that straightforward, that's easy. Once you make all of this selection, you click create plan. So it will create a restore plan. I already have 2 restore plans. So actually, I do have 3. The one I'm going to show you first is the RP for Yong1. That's the one I created for my target cluster, my original cluster, same cluster. I want to restore PostgreSQL from this cluster back to the same cluster. I don't want to do any transformation. I just want to do full override restore. If I click the restore plan details, you can see what I selected here, source cluster and the target cluster are the same. And my scope is I only selected my namespace. I did select the rollback destructive to terminate my existing ports. Otherwise, it was failed the job because the namespace it already exists. Okay, I did not add any rules for this particular restore job, just to show you how simple to restore the container back to the original namespace. That's the first task I'm going to show you. So let me jump to the command line. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to watch the pod status so you can see the progress. So right now, my container is up running, but shortly, when I kick off the job, it will terminate the existing container first before bring up the new container from the backup. So go back to my dashboard here. So remember, the restore jobs, it's not under the restores, it's under backups. It is confused me actually. It took me quite a little bit of time to figure out where are the restore button. You actually, if your screen is not large enough, you need to scroll to the right-hand side. For my case, you can choose any one of the restore points, basically. Most likely, you might choose the latest restore points. You click set up a restore. And then from here, you can verify your backup details if you want. And you can choose a restore plan. Okay, for my case, I want to restore to my original cluster, override my existing containers. I don't want to transform anything, so I did not add any rule. Shortly, I will show you the migrate RP1 when you want to transform, how to transform them. So select the RP for Yong1, you can view the restore plan here as well. I have 0 rules, substitution rules. That means I don't transform anything. And you're going to provide a name for the restore. Let's say local for restore 1. And once I make all of these selection, click restore. Unable to create a restore. Cluster is not in running status. Interesting. I feel like it's a bug. Anyway, let me try again. So I just verified my cluster is running all good. My namespace also running good. So this is the thing, because the agent is running from the control plane, you can't even verify if the agent is running or not. It looks like the cluster has some problems. I just did run the get namespace. It doesn't give me any response. Yeah, it looks like it just happened. Somehow my original cluster, the status wasn't correct. I don't know what's happening. I don't want to spend time here to troubleshooting why the cluster is not correct. It's not in the good status. So instead of doing this, somehow it is repairing the cluster. So it is very interesting. Let me walk you through the second use case. Before this cluster is up running, let me continue. So I'm going to restore to the secondary cluster. So I go back to backup for GKE. And from here, So go to the restore plans. I'm going to show you the second restore plan, migrate restore plan 1. So click here and click details. So you can see this restore plan is slightly different compared to my last one. So you can see my source cluster is U19. My target cluster is Yong. So we're going to restore from one cluster to the other cluster. So both of them are in the same location, but it can be from a different location. And I'm going to restore the same namespace, but I also configured 4 rules here. This is part of the rules. We are going to actually transform the namespace. So first of all, I'm going to transform the namespace from Yong-PostgreSQL to Yong-PostgreSQL-clone. And then I'm also going to transform the persistent volume claim, the storage class name, from a standard RWO to premium RWO. Here, by the way, this transformation, I believe the syntax is correct, but somehow it doesn't work. That could be the documentation from Google wasn't correct, or it could be the product wasn't ready to support transform the storage class yet. And last one, I did transform my stateful sets. My PostgreSQL, it was installed as a stateful set. I transformed from 1 replicas to 3. Okay, let's see how it goes. So I'm going to cancel this one, close this one for now. And I'm going to go back to remember where to do the restore jobs. It's not from the backup. It's not from the restore. It's from the backups. Okay. I'm going to select the latest backup. This is my latest backup, and click Setup Restore. So this time I'm actually going to restore to choose a different restore plan. I'm going to migrate from one cluster to the other. So if you want to see the details, you can click View Restore Plan Details. So for example, you can see my target cluster was a different cluster, and I transformed the 4 different spec artifacts listed here. And once you make all of the selection, you need to give a name of the restore. Let's say migrate restore 1. I'm going to migrate from one cluster to the other. So before I click continue, let me watch the status. So I'm going to get to the node, check everything is good. My target cluster looks like it's good. My namespace, I don't have the PostgreSQL here. So let me watch the progress. And then I'm going to click the restore. So click restore. So this time, remember, we're going to restore from one cluster to the other cluster. And we're using the restore plan, part of the migrate RP1, which including the 4 transformation rules. So it is very interesting. Only take 6 seconds. It marked as the restore job finished. I'm actually confused. The job actually wasn't completed successfully yet. It just kicked off the restore jobs, but behind the scene, we just started to launch. We created a namespace called Yong-PostgreSQL clone, and then we started to continue creating, and then becomes running status, and then pass the readiness check. It becomes 1/1. Once it's running, remember we increased the 1 replica to 3 replicas. That's why it is adding another 2 replicas. So you can see PostgreSQL-1 and then followed by PostgreSQL-2. Okay, looks like a PostgreSQL-2 also continue creating. Just a few seconds, it will be completely up running. Yeah, it is already running. Just waiting for the readiness check. We should be there in a few seconds. I think all good. It take probably 1 minute or 2 total. And we already restored the PostgreSQL from one cluster to the other cluster. Also part of the restore, we transformed the storage class, we transformed the namespace, We also transform the number of replicas from 1 to 3. Okay, come back to the dashboard. From a Google side, it only says 6 seconds restore finished, but it wasn't finished yet. So that is weird. So suppose you should wait the job finish, all the containers are up running, then mark the job as successful. But anyway, just to show you how it works. Okay, so let me check if my other cluster is up running. Yeah, somehow the other cluster still has some problems. So I can't do the restore to the original namespace testing. Yeah, I might just leave it for now. But you get the point how to do the restore jobs. Yeah, as long as, yeah, looks like it's still repairing the cluster. Yeah, I'm going to skip this one for now. So that basically, yeah, if you want to check the restore, the jobs, it's under the restores. You can see migrate restore job finished. And previously, I got yeah, that's also my previous restore job is also listed here. So my current restore job, that's migrate dash restore 1, and you can also check your backup histories here as well. Okay, come back to the slide deck here. So just to summarize what we just did, I demonstrated how to create a backup plan, how to create a restore plan, where to check the backup jobs, where to check the restore jobs, how to restore containers from back to original cluster or to a new cluster, how to transform the storage class or any other spec artifacts. Just to remember, restore jobs is from the backups tab, and click setup restore. It's not from under the restore tab. So here I included 2 screenshots to just highlight how the substitution rule works. So you basically, all of these, you need to fill by yourself. It's not that easy, that simple. You fill out your namespace, your target resource, and your JSON path, your original value, your new value. And for the namespace transformation, not only the namespace, you need also the resources inside of the namespace. So for example, my Yongkang-PostgreSQL, the application, you also need to be transformed. That's why the 2 substitution rules to change the storage class. You also got the chance to change the storage class. As I mentioned earlier, change the storage class. I followed their documentation. For now, it doesn't work. So maybe there's something is wrong from the documentation, or maybe it just doesn't work. The product wasn't finished yet. And the last one is how to transform from 1 replica to 3. So far, to be honest, I love Google Cloud. I love backup for GKE. It does provide the basic feature functionalities for the backup, container backups for the container DR, etc. But customer do need a choice. So I'm going to talk about the third party. Why you still need a third party backup for GKE. So one of the tools is from custom by Veeam. It is one of the very good tool. If you are looking for the self-managed backup. So it does provide you some additional feature functionalities comparing to Google. So it not only support GKE, they also support other Kubernetes distributions like EKS, AKS, OpenShift, VMware, Tanzu, Rancher, etc. It also support migrated containers between on-premises and across multiple clouds. It is relatively more mature and very easy and simple to use. And also they provide advanced restore capabilities. One of the restore capabilities is about a granular individual spec artifacts restore. So bottom of the screen, I do have a YouTube video talk about how to enable container backups on GKE, use Cassandra. You only need about 3 minutes to enable the container backups. I also created the automation. So you basically just run 1 command to enable the container backups on GKE in 3 minutes. Comparing to Google, you do need like a 20 minutes to enable the backup for GKE at least. Okay, so I'm not saying backup for GKE is not good. Backup for GKE from Google Cloud, it is actually very good. Remember I mentioned earlier, it's the only cloud provider among the top 3 being able to provide the Kubernetes native backup tools. So if you don't like the self-managed Kubernetes backup, and there is a much better tool, not only provide all the feature functionalities listed here, they actually also provide some additional feature functionalities. The other tool is called CloudCasa by CatLogic. So a couple of points here, in addition to the benefits I mentioned from the last screen about costing, and they also provided something called managed Kubernetes backup as a service. That means you don't have to manage the backup control plan. It is all done by CloudCasa. You don't have to worry about the upgrade maintenance. It's all done by CloudCasa. And in addition, they also provided the built-in multi-cluster management and plus built-in security scan capabilities, like the container scan, the configuration scan, CIS benchmark scan, or your network scan capability. And that's part of the CloudCasa offerings. And the next key point I want to highlight is who doesn't like the simplicity? So how to discover all of my GKE cluster? It is pretty simple. You just add the Google Cloud account. Once you add the Google Cloud account, it will automatically discover all of your GKE clusters. And then you can start to back them up. That's simple. The last point I want to highlight here is when it comes to DR, CloudCasa makes life even a lot easier. So you don't have to have a standby DR cluster keeps running 24/7, which obviously will be keep charging by the cloud providers. So part of the restore, CloudCasa allow you to spin up a new GKE cluster before kick off the actual container recoveries. So I also have a video talk about CloudCasa on GKE backup, how the life can be a lot easier. So the link also listed here. So if you have any questions or any feedbacks, please feel free to send to me. Just including a few reference links here. So my automation cool, CloudCasa documentation, Kubernetes free training and the badges. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I collected all of these free Kubernetes badges. And the Kubernetes user group or data management group, feel free to join us. And the group chat. The last link is about a backup for GKE, the official documentation page. I love automation. If you also love automation, you might be able to, you might be interested to try my automation tool, which is available from our GitHub page. I also have the YouTube video to talk about how to automate all these different Kubernetes distributions. I think that's pretty much all I want to talk about for today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope it is useful to you. Please feel free to connect me via any one of the ways listed here. Thank you.